Hello and welcome to Celebrating Cinema, a podcast for the love of cinema. I'm Lara Gommans and I'm here with our producer Elliot Bloom.
Hello, what's up?
We're going to discuss Spielberg's highly anticipated new alien epic Disclosure Day, which I have to say is getting quite mixed reviews, honestly. It's really divisive. Find out what we think after I share some fun things that are going on at Lab 111 in Amsterdam in the upcoming weeks. If you're into UFO and alien stuff, we're doing a whole program on the otherworldly cinema of UFOs and cosmic visitors. Cinema has a history of looking skyward in search of fear and wonder and possibility beyond human understanding, and we've partnered up with historian Alexander Bartels to create this program. He'll also be doing introductions to The Thing on June 18th, Close Encounters of the Third Kind on June 25th, and Memoria on June 29th. But first, Elliot, what have you been watching lately? How are you?
I finally got to watch Obsession.
Oh my God, welcome.
It was a lot of fun. And yeah, it's a really simple setup or premise, but it works so well with,
it's incredible.
Yeah, with this idea of like, if you could wish for anything and that thing being for the person you love to love you back, what would that look like? It just spirals out of control in a very, very chaotic way. And what I liked about it, there's like a few really gory moments, but not enough that I'm squealing and having to look away too much.
And there's, I think, like 2 or 3 pretty big jump scares.
Yeah.
There's the one that I very much recall. How did you do with those?
And jump scares I can manage. I find them a bit more fun.
Okay, yeah.
It's the blood and gore that really gets
right.
Which I think
I have a different friend who's really bad with jump scares, and I do remember that you're the one who doesn't like any gore.
Yeah,
so
and
really,
there's one scene that really
that is a little gore.
Yeah, it's really cool given like the conversation we had about Backrooms and sort of these YouTube turned directors that you're really seeing them. They've cleared over 100 million at the box office. Obsession seems to be one of these few films that are making more and more money as the weeks go on.
Yeah, first one since E.T. to do more in the second and third week than its first week. And it's projected to make like 250 million on a budget of 750,000.
And what have you been watching recently?
Oh man, I was also a little bit late to the party, but I watched Sheep Detectives.
What is that?
Oh my God, Sheep Detectives. Okay, so Sheep Detectives, how do I explain? It's Hugh Jackman. He's a shepherd. He has a bunch of sheep and he lives in a little British town. Then he's murdered, but he's been reading his CGI sheep, murder mystery stories every night. So his sheep know everything about detective stuff. So the sheep help the idiot policeman, who's played by Nicholas Braun, cousin Greg from Succession. They help him solve the murder of Hugh Jackman, the shepherd. And it's a classic British daytime murder mystery. I don't know who it's for. Maybe for me? I don't know. I've seen a lot of people say this is like the new Paddington. This is amazing. This is 5 stars. I didn't think that. I thought it was a solid 3.5, fun time, stacked cast. Like Bryan Cranston, Hugh Jackman, Hung Chow, Emma Thompson, Brett Goldstein does a couple of voices. It's just a really stacked cast, and it's a really fun. It's another one that you can kind of stick in that folder of like, if you go home and have to watch a movie with your parents, maybe, this is like a perfect contender. I quite liked it.
Hearing you having to explain the plot.
Yes, I know. It is one of those moments where it's like, I can't believe this is my job. But yeah, Sheep Detectives. I had not heard of it leading up to its release. Like the poster dropped and I was like, what the fuck is this? It's like the poster is a bunch of sheep holding a Polaroid of Hugh Jackman. And I was like, in what fever dream did I end up?
I can't believe I've missed this.
Also, even crazier, it's written by Craig Mazin, who's the guy that did like Chernobyl and stuff.
What? Okay.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, I think the central theme of it is loss and grief and remembering. It is one of those kids' movies that has a way more meaningful overarching theme, which I think is nice Super Mario Galaxy movie. Disclosure Day is Steven Spielberg's new movie, a return to a subject he loves and we generally love to see him tackle, aliens. I did the Ancient Aliens meme, but it's an audio medium, so you can't tell. We follow a minimum of 2 stories. First off, Daniel Kellner, played by Josh O'Connor. He's got intelligence agency Wardex on his ass because he has a backpack full of USB sticks containing basically 79 years of undisclosed alien info, as well as a mysterious object that everyone seems to be really nervous about. They just kidnapped and released his girlfriend Jane, played by Bono's daughter, Eve Hewson. So a few miles down the road, we have Emily Blunt's Margaret Fairchild. She is this like sassy weather lady at a local Kansas news station. And one day on her way to work, she is visited by a bird. And now she speaks Russian, Korean, and during her weather segment, she starts speaking some mysterious alien clicky language. By the way, this all happens during an escalating lead up to nuclear war. That's all playing out on the news. It's clear that something is going on for reasons yet to be disclosed, but it is important that Daniel and Margaret find each other. Here's a clip.
Good morning, Kansas City. Let's take a look at today. Today's.
So before we start talking about what we thought, something really fun happened during the promo of this movie. Maybe our listeners are familiar with my esteemed colleague, Ali Plumb. He's that guy from the BBC with the glasses who always does those fun interviews you watch on YouTube, and he always has a lot of fun with his guests. He was hosting a Steven Spielberg-themed pub quiz, and Steven Spielberg just happened to show up. It was a really big viral moment. It was even on the news here in the Netherlands. And it just so happens that Ali is one of my good friends. So I asked if he wanted to tell us in a little voice note on the pod how this came about. What was that like? Fair warning, it starts with a bit of unprompted flattery, which I could have cut out, but I'll keep it in because I love compliments. Here's Ali.
Hey, Laura. How's it going? I missed you. How are you? You are beautiful and kind and great. I think you're going to go far. All right. So I'm just stalling because I still haven't processed the fact that Steven Spielberg came into one of my quizzes on Friday alongside Coleman Domingo. And look, there's no way of talking about any of this without sounding like a total expletive deleted. I'm fully aware that this is a moment in my life I'll never forget. And I'm a person of extreme privilege. I get to review movies and watch films and occasionally host quizzes where Steven Spielberg turns up. But for those who don't know, I host a film quiz here in the UK, but also in Ireland and elsewhere, where I go to cinemas and I take over the biggest screen if I can, and I put on a big quiz. And through a lot of hard work from people, I basically managed to speak to some folks about the chances of getting like anyone even vaguely famous to turn up to one of my quizzes and ask a few questions. And often a lot of the people I've approached say, hey, yeah, I'd be up for it, but maybe when I'm promoting a movie. And so I cracked on with hosting quizzes. Fast forward to beginning of this year, late last year, I just sort of got it into my head that maybe Spielberg might be willing to do this sort of thing with Disclosure Day coming out today, right now, whenever you're listening to this. And it just sort of worked out. A lot of emails, a lot of back and forth. It was incredible. He is such a friendly, personable, giving guy. I never dreamed that he'd turn up with half a Guinness in his hand. And Coleman was just really charming too. And then I had the dream come true where they asked the first questions of the quiz. I am insufferable and awful, and I can only apologize, but I really think you're great, Laura. So I had to respond to you when you said, hey, give us a voice memo.
Ali, too kind, too kind. That's awesome. So it is fun to see that, like, a lot of work did go into getting Steven Spielberg to show up. I do like that in the news, it kind of seems like this was an incredibly spontaneous thing that happened. But it is still spontaneous that he's just like a good old geezer about it and just like is in for a good time. I love that.
It's funny that you have the Spielberg effect, but also in real life with just himself and not just his movies.
It's that like, oh my God, like, you know, film the crowd and make them
it's
believe
the Spielberg face when he walks in, everybody goes, ah.
Yeah, it is funny because that is like off of the press tour. I feel like that was kind of like the biggest, buzziest moment from the press tour, which is maybe a good segue into talking about what we thought of the movie. I gotta say, for me, apart from Dune Part 3, this has been my most anticipated release of the year. I am a huge Spielberg fan. I absolutely obsessed with Spielberg, though I have to say, this didn't really work for me.
Ooh. But first, tell us, where did you watch it?
I watched it yesterday night at the premiere at Tuschinski in Amsterdam. Elliot was going to go see the press screening, and I was like, Elliot, I'm sorry. I want to see this with my partner. I want to see this with my friends. It's a huge deal to me, so we're recording this kind of a day late because I was a diva about it and I wanted to go to the premiere. But yeah, I think that was a really fun experience. Like the premiere was really cool. They had this whole like newsroom build set up where you could like read the news kind of for Disclosure Day. Great on brand cocktails with dry ice and shit. Like it was really, really fun. Like it was a really fun event.
Yes. Come on then.
I mean, I just
put a dagger through my heart.
I know, because like
Tell me.
Well, I could sit here and talk for 7 hours if you want.
I'm not gonna let you.
I mean, we came home from the premiere yesterday, and me and my partner just spent like 2 hours talking about like, what about this? And then what about this? And then I had like a call at midnight with one of my friends being like, we need to talk about this. Anyway, there are things about it that I liked. I liked the first act. I thought the first act was very exciting. I was like, I love where this is going to go. I wonder where this is going to take us. Josh O'Connor's great. Emily Blunt is great. There's a great sequence where Emily Blunt gets these powers and sort of half realizes that it's happening to her. And she plays that note for note perfect. Like, I love the performance. I love the blocking on that. I loved that. Where it started to lose me, Elliot, and I'm so dying to hear your thoughts about this, but where it started to lose me and kind of take off the mask, at the end of the first act, Josh O'Connor's farmhouse is surrounded with, 75 FBI agents. Josh O'Connor's outside. His girlfriend is in the house. He has to get back to the house, but he has to get past like 70 FBI agents. How the hell is he going to do this? How about walk through an open field because all of these FBI agents conveniently have their backs turned towards him and they have no peripheral vision?
Well, can I just say one thing on that?
Go ahead.
The FBI have they or have they not proven themselves to be totally dysfunctional?
Bumbling fool.
Yeah,
comical
they've
Tom
let
and
Trump
Jerry
be shot like multiple times. I was willing to suspend my
but then
belief. I get it.
Where's the excitement in saying this government agency is just a bunch of low IQ fucking idiots? You know,
it's kind of true.
They're all like Laurel and Hardying all over the place. Fucking, Can Foley when they fucking tumble and fall. Then I started kind of looking at a lot of the elements of the movie, and kind of all of them exist because it's kind of convenient for them to exist. Josh O'Connor has a girlfriend, Jane. She is conveniently an ex-nun, so they can vaguely introduce a vague theme of religious undertones that they, by the way, completely abandon. Lady Emily Blunt is conveniently a news anchor because they might have to like barge into the news station later on to do a Disclosure Day. Like, so many of these things is like, boy, isn't that just convenient? And I don't know, that's why it kind of lost me. And I have to say, I'm really upset about it because I really wanted to like this more than anything else. But we talked a little bit yesterday and you seemed to be a little bit more enthusiastic about it than I was. Please tell me your thoughts.
So I loved this film and I loved it for many reasons. And I think, of course, while watching it, it felt like Spielberg's language of cinema hasn't really evolved for like the last 20 years. And you really kind of feel that. You feel his age in this film. And so I think, yes, he is a bit more, I don't want to say lazy, but he's just, he doesn't care necessarily for these convenient plot points and character developments. And I don't mind it because it's more about what he's trying to convey and the message behind that I think is far more important for him as a filmmaker rather than it all making sense.
Can you tell me about the message? Because I have to say that was a little bit unclear to me. It's like, okay, what is the broader message and is this the best way to say it? But I'm really interested in what do you feel the underlying message was? And I'm actually, by the way, we're discussing this movie. We're really going to try and maybe shy away from spoilers in the first bit until we sound the spoiler alarm.
Sure. So I also said to you that I think it's his most sentimental film. And the reason why I say this, of course, his previous film was The Fabelmans, which is basically
Incredibly sentimental.
yeah, it's an autobiopic, basically. It's very easy, I think, to be sentimental about your own life and your own child and everything. But here, I think he's sentimental about like the human race. And he is giving a vision of what is still possible for us. Like, it's a very hopeful film in the sense that, yeah, it's sort of these government agencies and how the sort of bureaucracy of power really wants us to sort of hate each other and divide each other. But really, there's a really beautiful monologue, which again is very convenient, between Coleman Domingo's character, Hugo Wakefield, and Colin Firth's character, Noah, where Coleman basically sort of tells you the whole premise of the film, of that empathy is like the ruling emotion of the universe. And I thought that's so beautiful that at 80 years old, you often see like these guys become a lot more cynical in their later years. That still,
Really?
even
Okay.
now, that he is able to hold on to something and project sort of his idea of what the world could be like.
Yes.
And this idea of that we are all entitled to the truth in some way, because only with the truth are we able to be open and honest and to empathize with each other. But when we're lied to and manipulated in all these ways, then it's easier to be divided. And I found that really powerful. And I think what I also liked is like Spielberg's previous films about aliens,
Yes.
E.T., Close Encounters, it's more about us looking towards the aliens. And for me, this was more about the aliens looking back at us and what
Okay.
do they see and how do we come to terms with that?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I love his other two movies about space. I think both Close Encounters and E.T. are very human movies. I think especially Close Encounters is actually the aliens are kind of just like a metaphor, as they often are. But what I love about those movies is they really make you care about the characters. Here, I kind of felt, even though Josh O'Connor and Emily Blunt are two of the best we have, I would say, I know nothing about these people. What I did enjoy was Emily Blunt and Wyatt Russell, her partner. By the way, Kurt Russell's son. This is a movie teeming with Nepo babies, who, by the way, all do a great job. But I did enjoy their little like relationship stuff, and it was comical. It was, in my opinion, a completely different movie. But then in the end, I feel like Josh O'Connor, Emily Blunt, I know nothing about these people or like what moves them, or, you know, and you kind of find out a little bit more throughout.
But I think that's kind of the point. And I mean, again, we can talk about it in the spoiler territory zone, but they say that they're vessels, that they're passengers for something else. And so that's also why it wasn't for me about, being connected to these individual characters specifically, but more what he's trying to do with the message that they're carrying. And I really bought into that. There were a few moments I was crying at some points. Just
I think it's kind of difficult to move past this point without sounding the spoiler alarm. So maybe we can put the time codes in the show notes to kind of go, here we're going into like the spoilers. So come back to this when you've seen the movie. And we're going to kind of discuss a little bit more in detail what happens further down the line in the movie.
Yeah. Actually, just to come back to your thing, because of you not liking the film, I was kind of expecting this film to divide people only after watching it, of course, because I think it's different to a usual Spielberg film that you might expect. Like, of course, it still has the same beats of like great blocking, some action sequences, this kind of stuff. But it's also kind of devoid of like real action or like these real suspense stuff. Because in a way, now that we're in spoiler territory, the way that Emily Blunt's character, Margaret, and Josh O'Connor's character, Daniel Kellner, they're always able to get themselves out of these like most bizarre situations of just being like completely surrounded by Fed agents and all this kind of stuff. And the only reason why they're able to do it is because their characters, Margaret's character is able to read people's minds, basically. And so she's able to empathize with them, and suddenly sort of like the seas part and they're free to continue on their journey, which of course...
Did you like that? Can I just kind of paint the picture for that scene specifically? So Emily Blunt gets these powers. Josh O'Connor at some point is captured by this intelligence agency. She kind of like barges in there, which is a super fun sequence because she's still discovering her powers. She kind of gets to the gate. She's like, I know you're agent, blah, 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 and the day code is this. And whatever. It's super, super, super fun. Colin Firth's character, Noah Scanlon, up to this point, his whole thing is, I'm a super evil villain and my whole life's motive is to like get back this backpack stuff. It's really important to me. Emily Blunt walks in there. It's a moment that is clearly played for emotion, and it unintentionally just was really funny to me. It was just like, she walks in, she kind of gets in Colin Firth's face, and you can see him just kind of go, Joyce, or whatever, his like his like dead wife. And then the camera kind of like moves past him, and you can see that Emily Blunt is now presenting as his dead wife. And she goes like, I love you, or whatever. And then he's like, oh my God, well, you guys should probably get out of here. Then they walk through a sea of 500 FBI agents, and one by one, she stops at like 5 people, puts her hand on their shoulder. Then it does that thing, and it's like suddenly she's an old man saying, I'm proud of you, son. And suddenly she's a child saying, I love you, Mom. Or like, and I thought it was so incredibly corny. And I'm sad because I do like Spielberg's sentimentality usually, but it usually feels earned. And now again, it just felt incredibly convenient.
Yeah, I mean, I found that sequence pretty comical as well.
Do you think it's played for laughs, or do you think it's played for
No, I think it's
emotion?
it's played for emotion.
Right.
But like, maybe you can say though that like it shows our lack of understanding or own empathy to appreciate what that moment might mean for those two characters, for someone to read their mind and understand them in that moment, to change how they feel or to change their behavior.
Yeah, but it's like, it's so many people in this government agency that are just gonna, like, as you say, like the sea part and just let them walk out of there. And then they're at a leisurely pace, just like driving away until the evil FBI agent comes from. So it's like, I just didn't feel any of that was earned. I was just constantly left with, what the fuck, you know? And it kind of annoyed me. Then an interesting observation I made is, after that happens, they get to like a train crossing, they're waiting there, evil FBI agent shows up. He rears them and he's trying to push them into the train. This is something that Spielberg is usually so good at. Like, this almost would have reminded me of something like Duel, like one of his earlier films. He tends to be good at these like car chasey things. Here, I kind of never felt like they were in actual peril. Also, because the train is just incredibly CGI. No point do you feel like there's actually a train there. At no point do you feel like this is an actual stunt. And this made me think of something that has something to do with Spielberg's age, which was, say it again?
79.
79 years old. That sequence read so lame to me because it was CGI. And the CGI looks kind of bad. Like, it kind of looks like a John Lewis Christmas commercial. Like, these animals come up and you can tell that they spent like 1.5 day on creating each animal. It just, oh man, like, I would have really liked that to be practical. Because Steven Spielberg was always the king of that, and now he loves CGI. Isn't it interesting to see Steven Spielberg now actually relying on quick and easy CGI, because this wasn't Jurassic Park style, very intricate CGI. Martin Scorsese embracing AI, promoting AI. Kane Parsons, 20-year-old director of Backrooms, saying, I want to do everything practical. Curry Barker, everything practical. I just thought that was an interesting thing. It's like, oh, is this like boomers posting Minion pictures on Facebook? Like, look at what we can do. Look at what we can do. And it's like, yeah, no, we don't fucking want that though.
I was thinking also a lot of Francis Ford Coppola's film Megalopolis.
Yeah.
And like, in a way, yes, it can come across as lazy or quick, or like the quick and easy fix. Mm-hmm. And the kind of grace that I try to give them is that they, of course, have a vision. They want it to be in such a certain way, but they are so old that like to be able to make a film and like the amount of time it takes to be on set all the time with all this kind of stuff, maybe for them, they're at an age where they're like, oh, it makes it easier for me. I'm okay to compromise on these kind of things.
Yeah.
Because like I said, they have made so many great films, and they've made so many films that perhaps they just care more about the message of the film that they want to share rather than how it looks as much. And I think because you see that happening with so many older filmmakers, that's how I read it. Do you think
we should cut them slack and kind of...
That's kind of like my whole thing with this is like, if you're expecting a Spielberg film of like E.T. caliber, Jurassic Park, that was him like 40 years ago almost. And like, I rather want to know how he thinks and feels in this current moment that he's in, and how he's able to translate that to a film, rather than expecting him to just consistently reproduce another banger after banger after banger. And so...
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with that sentiment. I just think there would have been a more interesting way to do it. Also, the story is written by David Koepp, who is a screenwriter he's worked with a bunch before. And I'm also kind of maybe getting an inkling that maybe David Koepp isn't the best screenwriter. Because everyone's always saying like, well, it's David Koepp. He wrote Jurassic Park. Did he though? Because David Koepp wrote the screenplay for Jurassic Park based on Michael Crichton's novel. It's a very adapted screenplay. So I believe it was my buddy Dan at Real Takes on Instagram who said that it feels like David Koepp and Steven Spielberg's narratives are kind of fighting each other a little bit. Because of that, I kind of did feel like it lacked a clear message, and I didn't think that this was the best road to the message of empathy.
Well, I told you, right, that I cried at certain moments, and one of those moments was when I saw the aliens. And
Was
the
that
reveal
like
of
way
the
in the
alien.
beginning, like when he shows Jane the footage?
No. This was at the end. So when
The final sequence.
Yeah, where they wheel in the,
Oh, really?
the
Okay.
big old guy, and you also have this moment of everybody's experienced it through their screens. And that was for me when I was kind of understanding the message of the film. How was it for you to see the aliens?
So for me, it's always complicated, first of all, to put aliens on screen. I think Signs is a great example of them doing it right and then fucking it up. Like, you know, they do a great one where they almost kind of like vaguely show the alien and then they just give you Alien full frontal and you're just like, well, it wasn't what I expected. Here, first of all, I really like that they're grays. Maybe for non-alien geeks, we need to. So grays are kind of like, you know, when you had the poster of aliens in your bedroom when you were 13, it's just the classic, you know, when you think of an alien, classic alien shape, gray guy, big eyes, kind of big head. I like that it's that because that kind of goes, oh, so the things that we've been expecting are rooted in truth. I like that. Okay, so the thing about the aliens in Disclosure Day is that they're supposed to be this incredibly advanced, superior, technological life form, yet they keep crash landing face first, just planting into the planet. Just poof, they keep crash landing, just eating shit for 79 years, just into Earth. Okay, you know, willing suspense of disbelief is my middle name. Fine. Then, what's their plan? They're like, find 2 white American children. Please. Can they be Chinese? No, they have to be white American children. You know, take them up into the spaceship, do some procedure to them, then let it lay dormant. Let it lay dormant for 30 years. Meanwhile, we keep eating shit into the planet, just crashing. Also, make the boy do math, make the girl do feelings. Then you got to make sure that she can go on television. This is very important. Then, when she barges into the news station, we wheel out a giant alien, even though on the footage it seems like they're only the size of about a 5-year-old. Whatever. This is a bigger, maybe older one. And then the big message is what? Like the big message is listen. I just want to be part of this alien board meeting that they had up in their spaceship where maybe one like junior alien went, should we do like the Arrival thing where we kind of just like land and like send a message to everyone that we come in peace and that we have all this wisdom to share? And this guy goes, no, local Kansas news station is the only way. We need a guy with 27 USB sticks that he also, by the way, didn't bother to edit into a highlight reel. That's the only way we'll get out this message. I think that's a bad way of telling the story. I'm sorry.
I was asking you about aliens and we ended up here.
Sorry, I just have so much to say about this movie.
No, I mean, for the aliens that kept crashing, it just felt like the kids were doing like a driving lessons and they kept ending up falling into Earth. That was my take because
But
of
they
how small
already
they
got
are.
all this way. Like they come from a very, very distant galaxy.
Yeah.
They built these incredibly advanced spaceships and they keep eating shit. That doesn't make sense to me. Here, it's just like, we have 400 gigabytes of this stuff happening. It's like, wow, that must happen a lot. This must happen all the time. So why do they hold the wisdom then? You know, I don't know. I love a bit of willing suspense of disbelief. Here it was just like, and then this can't have been the most practical way of doing this. This is also not the way that makes me feel the most empathy. I'm on such a rant right now. I'm so sorry. Because I also have a lot to say about us living in a post-truth society.
Because you're kind of touching maybe a bit also on, although it wasn't really covered properly in the film, but there's a part also of Jane's character, right, where she questions if there are real godlike figures, what does that do to religion almost? And it feels here almost that you're treating the aliens as some kind of godlike figures, that they are far superior than us because they shouldn't be crashing and all of this. And I think they're not going to get everything right, even though maybe they have conquered the idea of like space and time travel. But and I think even with, as also what you say with the post-truth era, of like we see footage of some kind of alien activity or these unidentified objects. So there is a sense that things could go wrong that could be captured on camera in some way that makes it feasible. But I get it with with the highlights reel of just constant crash.
You're going to upload 400 gigabytes of raw footage directly into Kansas local news? Like, it doesn't seem like the best way to go about it. Why did it have to be USB sticks? Why didn't he just upload it to fucking YouTube? You know, and then all of these things are tackled briefly. It's like the Nolan way of Josh O'Connor, I think at some point goes, I'm just going to upload it. And then Coleman Dominguez says, it's not the right time. It has to be the Kansas news station. It's like, yeah, but then tell me why.
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, because if you look at, there is footage online available to us
everywhere,
but we don't really believe in it, or we don't really, it hasn't really changed how we act necessarily. But the fact that they create this one, let's say, viral moment where everybody stops still, and because there is still some kind of pedigree to the news and what they tell you, it makes people listen maybe a bit differently to if it was just on YouTube and you discover it.
I fully see your point. I think wheeling the alien out and putting the alien on screen, I think that would have been a vibe.
Yeah.
Just this whole thing of like, I mean, the Pentagon recently was like, we're going to release a whole bunch of like alien footage and like spacecraft footage. And we were all like, yeah, what the fuck? We don't care. Show us the Epstein files. Like, I think Spielberg underestimates how fucking tired we are. Like, if a spaceship were to land on this very building right now, like everyone would be like, okay. You know, like I feel like that's way more the sentiment of the world we live in. And the news, famously, currently, not something a lot of people adhere a lot of value to, unfortunately. I believe those institutions are very important. However, you know, as soon as this hits online, I just don't believe that the whole world would fall quiet and suddenly there's unity and everyone feels the same.
But I don't think that's necessarily what he's saying would happen. I think he's then saying, like, with this truth, what are you going to do next?
What do you think people do with it after?
Well, that's the thing. And I think the fact that you see them all experiencing this through their phones and through screens, I can imagine they just carry on the next day. It's kind of like with COVID in a way, right? That it was this big transformative life experience that we all shared, and it hasn't really changed anything after it all just went away. We're back to some kind of normal. But I will agree that the kind of strongest criticism I would say is that it's a very liberal boomer dad coded kind of film, in the sense that it's very simplified in terms of his vision of what life could be like, of what the truth looks like, of how easy it could be to get this out, of also the fact, like, we haven't even spoken about it, but in the film it's constantly red, blue, everything's red, everything's blue, and it's trying to creating a very simplified version of how divided things are, or the two different sides that people are all on. But yeah, that would be where I could agree with that. But I'm happy for him to be in his like sentimental era, and for him to like give us this kind of film, as opposed to just some kind of like another
war movie. I don't need to see another war movie from Spielberg. I'm
especially
done.
Not Warhorse.
Jesus. I want to ask what you made of the stick. They have the stick. The stick is a big thing in the movie. So the stick is a lot of things. It's kind of conveniently whatever you want it to be in the moment. They have this stick. It's alien stick. And everyone's like, oh, be careful. Like, you'll explode if you touch it. But not Josh O'Connor and not Margaret. Because, you know, in the beginning, they kind of act like it's an explosive or a gun. Then it's kind of this Palantir style thing where you can dive into a person by looking at a picture of them. You can see through their eyes. Sure. Then it's like a remote to turn the power back on. It's also an invisibility cloak that's oddly specific. It can cover objects, fire trucks, and about 70 people, but it can't protect them from a heat sensor. What do you make of the stick?
For me, it felt very like Marvel coded, like one of the Infinity Stones kinds of thing. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really give it much thought. It was just felt like some kind of alien technology.
It's a device, literally a plot device.
Yeah, exactly. So in 1965, Susan Sontag made the argument that science fiction doesn't prepare us for disasters, but instead vaccinates us against it. And I think if you look at all alien movies, it basically does that. And it's why any kind of disclosure will fall flat. And I want to know what you think about this, especially with Steven Spielberg and his filmography of aliens and the fact like he ends with something like Disclosure Day and kind of like in the film itself, rather than ending up as like this big news report, it falls flat. How that affects our own sort of relationship to like the Pentagon releasing all these UFO files and all of this.
Well, I think our relationship to the Pentagon releasing files is that at this point, I don't think a lot of us really trust what the Pentagon is doing at all. So I think it is, again, as I mentioned, 2 white children. I think it's very unique that all of these things are happening kind of only in America for some reason. Roswell and all these things. It's just like the aliens seem to fucking love America. And I'm like, gee, isn't that interesting?
Disclosure Day starts with a first person point of view of you in a wrestling ring being thrown around. It's shot so, it just looks so bad and it feels very cheap and everything. And you're like, am I in a Spielberg movie? This
feels like, what the fuck am I?
Yeah, but what I like about it is like wrestling for me is kind of a great analogy of like the myth making that America tells of itself. Like wrestling is the most ridiculous sport I find because it's all so pretend and yet people are like completely divided over it and they'll give everything to it.
It's dance. It's competitive dance.
It's kind of drag. It's very draggy.
It is drag. It's wrestling is basically drag.
Yeah,
that's true.
And so it starts there, and then you build up all the suspense, and there already it's the red and the blue, and like it's very clear people are wearing red hats with American flags on it.
Yeah,
and it's very clear what he's trying to say in that moment, but it's a great way into the film because it immediately lowers maybe your expectations of what you're going to watch. So therefore I was ready for whatever Spielberg was going to give us because it didn't start maybe in the same suspenseful kind of way or like these sort of slow build-ups that you're used to with Spielberg. And instead you're immediately thrown right in. Yeah,
you are immediately thrown right in. I did think it was one of those things like, oh yeah, no, I see what you're trying to say. It's fake and it's mythology and it is that. And it's also, you never kind of go back to that. It's just because, again, Josh O'Connor is conveniently there for no reason.
Well, I think it was a drop-off point that they told him to go.
It was a drop-off point with the Wardex guys. Yeah. So next week, we're going to have an episode where we dive way deeper into UFOs with Alexander Bartels as well, who is a historian, where we're going to talk a little bit more about, like, what do these aliens mean? I just think... Can you ever be prepared for what it is? Do I feel like they're going to be little gray men? No. Do I feel like there's something out there? Probably. I don't know. I kind of feel the same way about it as I feel about religion. I don't fucking know. Like, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
But do you think cinema has therefore then changed or, clearly influenced how we perceive aliens, but also our relationship to it because we are so used to seeing them on screen that whatever we are shown, we are not maybe going to believe it or take it seriously because we have such a fantasy in our head of what it could look like.
What do you think?
Yeah, we wouldn't believe it. I don't think if we're shown it. I mean, it's kind of what you see, like already, although you don't trust the Pentagon, there is enough sort of empirical evidence to suggest that there is other life forms or other technology that we don't know about.
Yeah, and it could be still... I mean, I'm sure Alexander's going to have a lot to say about this next week, but it could also be Chinese tech that we don't know about. Like,
True.
It could also be like a weather phenomenon, like these orbs that you've been seeing. Like, it could be all kinds of things. I still think, for example, Arrival is a more emotional, empathetic, realistic trail of what it would look like when aliens would come to Earth. I mean, there's just so many different ones. There's like Independence Day where they don't come in peace. There's the ones where they do come in peace. Like, I don't know. I think... if it does happen and when it does happen and we find life on a different planet, it'll probably be some sort of amoeba. We'll see. I'm excited to find out. I hope I do in this lifetime.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I do think, again, like we've talked about vampires, we've talked about zombies, we've talked about all these things. And I think aliens really kind of have a similar role to reflect, again, the fears of the time. I mentioned in the intro that this kind of all sort of almost irrelevantly plays against the development of DEFCON 2, like nuclear war threat. It is, again, that fear of we're not listening to each other, guys. We're not listening. It's this powerlessness of we're not listening to each other. I don't know. I'm actually really excited for people to see this. This is definitely, for me, not a don't go see this movie kind of endorsement. I actually had the time of my life yesterday afterwards talking to my friends about it, not only to be like, what the fuck is the stick and why is everyone a dum-dum, but also just kind of like, what do you think this means? So I am actually really excited for people to go see it and definitely tell us what you thought. Speaking of wanting to hear what you guys think, we do this little segment called Hot Takes at the end of every episode where you guys can send in a hot take that you have about movies, a controversial opinion, something that you like discussing with your friends. You can send it to us in a voice note on either Instagram, TikTok. You can send it in an email through celebratingcinema@lab111.nl. We have one today from Andy, and it's related to Spielberg. Let's have a listen.
I believe since Schindler's List in the 90s, Spielberg's cinematographer has been Janusz Kamiński, who has, I think, been nominated 7 times and won twice for the Academy Award for Cinematographer. And he is overrated. This motherfucker makes the movies just look wet. They are sopping wet, especially in the post-2020 movies. I'm talking West Side Story. I'm talking Fabelmans. And from all I can tell of the trailers of Disclosure Day, that too, everything just looks so damp. I feel like 70s era, 80s era Spielberg movies look much warmer and more lived in. And now they just look like they came out of a Sprite can.
Andy, I feel you, man. I definitely think Janusz Kamiński is a good cinematographer.
Sure.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
What did you, by the way, think of how Disclosure Day was shot?
I didn't find it particularly special. I think he makes a very good point here, Andy. It also felt in Disclosure Day very wet and damp. Yeah,
things are wet. Things are wet all the time.
But I think it kind of speaks to what I was saying in the beginning of how like Spielberg's whole film language hasn't really evolved in the last 20 to 30 years. And I think that's...
And there is a big cutoff point. And
yes.
I think it's, probably mid to late 90s where he just made that switch kind of. And then a lot of the reviews, and I'll get back to what Andy's saying, but a lot of the reviews for this are saying, this is the best movie he's made in 20 years. And it's like, yeah, well then name one movie in the last 20 years that would have been like better. Because
Fabelmans.
I definitely enjoyed Fabelmans more than this because I did feel a little bit more mildness toward it because it felt so personal. West Side Story was enjoyable, but whatever. Then other than that, kind of. Yes, everything looks wet. That's true. Everything, also all the blacks are really blue, which is something that has been really annoying me in movies lately. But then something that has been really annoying me lately that Spielberg loves to do is anamorphic lens flare.
Yeah.
It's that fuck-ass line in every frame that every director currently seems to be obsessed with. Basically, what you do is these anamorphic lenses are basically lenses that, the look is great. You get a lot of stuff on screen. But whenever you backlight them, they form this, like, fucking line. And this is truly one of my pet peeves. I hate the lens flare, and it is in almost every frame of Disclosure Day, I will say. So I think, my gripe is not necessarily wetness. My gripe is definitely the lens flare. I want it to stop. I think that's one of those things we look back on in a few years and we're like, ugh, remember when all movies looked like that?
Definitely.
All right, so don't forget to send us your hot takes and check back in next week because we'll have an episode diving deeper into UFOs and aliens and outer space stuff and what that represents in cinema. Some of the best versions of Aliens on Screen are now screening at Lab 111 as part of our We Are Not Alone program. You can get your tickets for that at lab111.no. See you next week. Stay connected with us at Celebrating Cinema and Lab by following at Lab111 on Instagram and Letterboxd. Do you love what we do? Support us by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us climb the ranks of the podcast charts. This was a Lab 111 production, edited and produced by Elliot Bloom, and co-produced by myself, Laura Gommans. Music comes from Hugo Emertsal, and the artwork is by Studio FFF.